I'm going to first say that I believe the severity of the coronavirus is exaggerated. I won't talk about why I believe that, but I will talk about the economic and political problems that have been revealed by the corona matter. As you may know, governors all over the U.S. have ordered workers in their states who work in so-called non-essential industries to stay home to reduce the spread of corona. That, of course, means that millions of Americans currently have no income. To deal with that, the U.S. Congress has agreed to provide Americans with stimulus checks that will compensate them for lost income and help stimulate the U.S. economy. Unfortunately, it may be weeks or months before Americans will receive any of this money. Meanwhile, Americans are running out of money and may end up starving before they get their stimulus checks. And that is one of the biggest problems regarding the current health crisis. The U.S. government was designed in the 18th century for the 18th century. Though some updates have been incorporated into the function of the current government, the government mostly operates according to 18th century principles. This is partly why Congress wasted so much time arguing about how to help out citizens instead of offering that help immediately. Stupid Congress member Chuck Schumer claimed that the stimulus package was fast help. 3 weeks may sound fast to Congress, but it is extremely slow outside the Washington bubble. It's my strong belief that the government needs to be updated for the 21st century. If we can update communications technology, transportation technology, and manufacturing technology, then we should also update the governing process. And I think a good first step toward updating the government is to vote everybody out of Congress and replace them with new people. Most in Congress seem to be stuck in the 18th century anyway. I also say term limits would help with updating the government. And eliminating political parties would also be beneficial because politicians care far more about their party affiliation than they care about the country. Of course, eliminating political parties would require a constitutional amendment. This sort of change will not be easy, duh. In a resource-based economy, government doesn't exist, unless you count the cybernated systems that monitor resource usage and availability. More to the point, pandemics in an RBE would likely be resolved more quickly than in a monetary system, because the cybernated systems of an RBE would allow more rapid analysis of and solutions to the pandemics. It's this sort of thing that makes me wish that a cybernated complex were running the government instead of moronic people who are stuck in the 18th century. And before you say it, STFU about AIs destroying humanity like in the Terminator and Battlestar Galactica. Those are fictional events written by people who have no expertise in AI research. Terminators and Cylons don't exist in real life. Besides, safety features could be built into the AIs to prevent them from destroying humanity. And before you say that's impossible, you have to remember there was a time when people believed that rockets that can launch and land themselves were impossible. The corona problem also reveals how stupid the monetary system is. And what makes the monetary system stupid is the fact that we don't need it anymore. To explain why, I'm going to say what Jacque Fresco, co-founder of the venusproject, said about the Great Depression. During the Great Depression, millions of people were jobless, even though businesses that could provide jobs still existed. During the Great Depression, millions of people were starving, even though plenty of food was being produced. During the Great Depression, millions of people were homeless, even though there was not a shortage of homes. The only reason why so many people during the Great Depression lacked those needed resources is because they didn't have any money. In other words, people should have access to resources if the resources are sufficiently abundant. And in the current reality, resources are sufficiently abundant. And that's the basis of how an RBE works. Of course, an RBE can't be implemented immediately. We need to transition to it. Basic income is one way we can transition to an RBE. Basic income is also how we can economically survive the current health crisis. Meanwhile, there are those who say we can't have basic income because it'll blow up the federal budget deficit. They also say the stimulus package will blow up the deficit as well. To that I ask, Have you ever heard of modern monetary theory? Anyway, modern monetary theory explains how various national governments are able to generate revenue without the need for taxation. The US government is one of those governments. This means the deficit is just an abstraction that doesn't have a real effect on the economy. Then you might ask, if the government can generate revenue without taxes, then why do we pay taxes? There are a number of reasons why we need to pay taxes, and one of those reasons is to control inflation. When the government receives money from taxpayers, that money is immediately deleted from the economy. Less money in the economy means less inflation. But if the government didn't delete those tax dollars, we'll eventually end up with things like $100 loaves of bread. My explanation for modern monetary theory may be wrong, since I'm not an expert in that area. So please correct me if I'm wrong. Meanwhile, there are those who say that modern monetary theory is a myth or whatever. To that I say, I'm not going to agree with that claim. Then there's a shortage issue. I'm still correct when I say we live in an age of abundance. The recent shortages come from greedy asshole people who've gotten way more resources than they need. Those people are also trapped in the present. They seem to believe that the past never happened and the future will never come. Before Corona, people would often buy supplies when they run out of those supplies. After Corona, dumbasses would buy a huge amount of supplies and cause shortages as a result. Let's say it's 10 years ago. If people had always been buying, let's say, 2 bottles of sanitizer when they go to the store since that time, they would have built up a surplus supply of sanitizer for themselves, and there would not be a shortage of sanitizer. Corona also reminds me of what George Carlin said about stupid people. He said if you consider how stupid the average person is, you'll realize that half of them are even stupider than that. We need to declare war on stupidity. And before you say it, no, I don't claim to be some kind of genius. More than likely, I'm highly stupid too. But at least I admit it. Most stupid people think they're smarter than Einstein and Hawking combined. And stupidity is a real threat to human survival. And despite all the bullshit, like the 18th century government, the monetary system, and the stupid people that plague this planet, I still believe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I say that light is a resource-based economy, or at least a path to an RBE. Peace, the science out.